Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. 48 Laws of Power discussion series, New York Times best-selling book by author Robert Greene. Sorry we're late. I eat food. Not going to make excuses. I eat food, inappropriately timed food. I'd say it's not my fault. It's not my fault. Trust me. But we're here anyway. I am here tonight. Special guest. OG member of the Outsiders. That'd be Darth Hideous's Outsiders, not to be confused with other Outsiders, which are not Darth Hideous's Outsiders. But I have the Mousey-Files, aka Smol Mousen Girl. Good evening, Mousy.
Good evening.
So,
How you doing?
for those of you who don't know, this is my good friend Mousy. She's one of my ace mods. Her and the Bijou and the we didn't even say hi to the chat ninjas. I mean the cat ninja who said it's Mousy Monday. Who else we
Mhm.
got? We got hold on, we got way too much going on with the emoji spamming. That's Bijou. That is also Bijou. Grace is here. Good evening, Grace. Thank you
Hey,
for
Grace.
coming to support the small mouse. Oh, yeah. Baki. Baki is in the house. Like, the Sith are taking over. So, turns out I'm going to finish off the 48 Laws of Power with a bang because I got a guest lined up for every single one.
Heck yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know, Small Mouse is going to be my guest tonight, obviously. This should be obvious by now. On Wednesday, we have a Cat Ninja. And on Friday, we have a Bijou. And then, coming up Monday, Darth and Divinity will finish off the thing they started almost a whole effing year ago with the 48th Law. That'll be next week. So, yep, got a full stacked schedule coming up and should be interesting. You specifically demanded this. Like, you called it and you were yelling really loudly. And I thought at first you were just joking, so I didn't really pay much attention to it. And then you brought it back up again that you called it. And I'm like, why?
Because it's Law
Why?
45.
Yeah, it's Law 45. Do you know what Law 45 is?
I do.
Do
I
you?
do. Hmm.
Law 45 is preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. So, what does that mean to you? Because I have a really actually good reference between you and me of you incorrectly observing this law. A great example of you observing this law but doing so incorrectly.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Yep.
But, like, everyone does this. And even our government does it, which, not to pull out the whole political
Oh,
side,
I mean
but
that's
they do.
like that's one of the most common references I use to modern power because most of the references Robert Greene uses, as you've noticed, are references to ancient forms of government, usually monarchies or empires. Like he loves Napoleon, who's an emperor. He loves the tea people of Japan. He loved to use Chairman Mao from China and the Chinese Cultural Revolution as
Yep.
so. I mean, like usually when you think of power, like you think of governments because governments tend to have the monopoly on violence. So you want to know what example I have that you incorrectly, even against my advice, incorrectly observe this law?
Yes.
The rose beast. Remember what I told you to
Yeah.
do with that thing?
Yes. 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 I do.
Get the biggest pair of pruners you can find and do what with it?
Cut it down.
Like, when I say
All
cut
of
it
it.
down, I meant to the ground. Like, not to the ground, but there's a base crown that these things have that gets really thick and heavy woody. Like, that's kind of almost what you want to cut to. A node above that, or two nodes above that, maybe, if you're feeling really ambitious. But you did not.
No.
And what
No.
happened?
Oh, she came back
Oh,
with a
she's going
vengeance.
to. She's absolutely going to. But
Oh, she already has.
imagine what's going to happen when you cut it all the way down and she comes back with a venomous fury.
Oh yeah, she's gonna be real mad when I do finish cutting her down.
Yeah.
It's gonna be real bad.
She's gonna be actually really happy. Like, you're gonna think she's gonna be mad, and then you're gonna see her pop back and be like, "Holy crap, Darth knows something."
And you know why we stopped where we stopped with her though?
Hmm.
There was
No, I
so
don't.
much of her.
Uh huh. What?
It took us 3 days to get where we stopped.
Oh man, like, I don't know how that's even possible.
Oh, she was wrapped around my whole front deck twice.
Oh, you probably gently removed her from all of that. See, I would have just cut her off at the base and then ripped all that shit out of the ripped all that shit off where it climbed onto.
Well, we were trying to figure out where exactly all of
Like,
her was.
do you have vinyl siding? Because if you have vinyl siding, then I definitely don't recommend that approach. But for pretty much
Yeah.
anything else, from aluminum siding to wood shake shingles to just brick house, like, yeah, just cut it off and start at that end and rip everything back to the beginning. Like, you'll find the ends of all of it eventually, as long as you keep hold of that beginning and don't tear yourself to shreds.
And
Anywho, Cat Ninja
horrible
remembers
like
me giving you this advice because I did it live on my show. The mouse does not listen. The mouse does what she pleases. She is royal in her own regard. And to be fair, it's her damn plant, and I don't have to look at it. So I gave her my professional opinion with 21 years of experience backing it. No, I can't do any more than that. She gonna do what she gonna do. But I need you to tell me, Smol Mousen, why you think that you should never reform too much at once. In the sense of like power and governance.
well, I mean, if you change everything all in one go, no one can handle that much change. It will shake everyone up. They'll be like, "What is going on here?" Like you can't just take that away. But if you do it slowly,
Mm,
they don't see it coming. Like one
kind
day
of
you're
like,
saying Merry Christmas, and the next year you're saying Happy Holidays.
yeah. And then the next year you're saying that holidays are actually white supremacy and colonizer and we should get rid of them altogether. It's called the slow boil on the frog. And it's so that the frog doesn't realize that he's being boiled alive. Hello, Texas Jen. Hello, Squabobbles.
Hey, Squab.
Squabs and
Hey, Texas
Texas
Jen.
Gens.
All the chat that I didn't say hi to.
I
Sorry.
mean, they're just rolling in, like, uh, I tend to get my notifications going out to people right about 10 minutes after I go live. So we're at 11 minutes. Now is the time that you would expect people to start appearing. So shout out to hold on, let's do a head count roll call and a like button smash fest all at once. We have two watching on Darth the Hideous on Zitter/Twix. Shout out to y'all. Uh, 5 here on the YouTube side for a grand total of 7. And then a total of 7 over on Rumble as well. That gives me 14 so far as I count. And just like that, we lose half the Rumble audience. Bloop, beep, boop.
It's just like that. They're gone.
Yeah, and just like that, poof. No hideous for us. Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. But yeah, I mean, the reason that you can't reform too much at once is because of the impending chaos. And I can think of a really good example of this. There were a lot of people that were really, really, really okay with life as it was in colonial America before like 3 to 5% of us were like, yeah, but what about fuck the king though? And they were like, yeah, I don't really care much about that. Hey, T3, tell Winnings crew I said hello and have a good evening over yonder. Don't get into any trouble I wouldn't get into. Thank you, and have a nice evening. But yeah, I mean, it was about 3 to 5% of the people that started the American Revolution. About 15%, I'd say, in the like whole duration of it, fought on the revolutionary side, the traitor side, if you will. And about 15% fought for the loyalists, the British. And the other like 60, 70% of people didn't fight at all. They stayed out of it. Kind of like the Civil War, kind of like a lot of wars that we get into. It's done by a very small percentage of people, but that was a violent culture shock to people.
Yeah, you
And
wake up one morning, all your teeth.
the thing that makes the American Revolution different from most other revolutions, like the French Revolution, for instance, which is another favorite example, is there was a plan in place for what came next. They knew they were going to tear the whole system down because they had to accomplish the goals they had, but they also knew exactly what they wanted to replace it with, which is why we got the United States in the form that we got it versus getting something that looked like the result of the French Revolution, which led to the rise of the Napoleonic Empire and the end of the line of the Louis. Which I mean, once you get to like Louis 26, um, sorry, it's time to be done with that shit. And I think it actually ended on Louis the 18th, but uh, Bijou, Grace wants to know if you can turn back time.
Can you find a way?
Squabobblies. Oh, that's why I think it's going to be the most straightforward, like, actual explanation of what is going on here. Because, yeah, you're right. People can't handle that many changes and that many choices all at once. Like, which is why I do love the candidate who just dropped out of the presidential race. He was the first one to go, Mr. Obama Swami. He preached a very radical change. Like, he wants to get rid of like 70% of the federal government. I'm like, hell yeah, bruv, me too. And then he tells me what he wants to get rid of, and it's like, that's not 70%. That's like 7%. Good start.
Yeah, but you take it all away at once. Everyone's gonna freak out.
Mm,
They're like, there's no law and order. What do we do?
yeah.
Well, what did we do before law and order? Come on.
I mean, we just did basically that's the argument I use when I say let's repeal the federal government. They're like, well, who will build and maintain the roads? I'm like, well, I'm guessing the same people who do already. They'll just do it as a private enterprise instead of a government contract.
Very, very true.
And
And
then you get, oh, well, who's going to pay for it then? And that answer is just as easy. You're going to get the businesses and corporations that need access and need people to have access to what they're trying to, they're going to be the ones who pay for it, believe it or not. Like in your major urban areas, all the local like businesses, your everything that goes on in your downtowns, they're going to pay to maintain all that stuff. And in your neighborhoods, like you could probably do millages for pennies on the dollar of what it costs under the government system to just buy them locally. Like it's really easy without adding all that government palm greasing, pocket lining, and waste program in there because, well, when it's done on the private market, you have to provide like not just the lowest bid, but actual decent quality as well because you don't get that guaranteed money. So you'll find a bunch of people that are seriously incentivized not to change anything at all. Like there's a whole group of people that are incentivized to change things. That's not as big of a group. The group that's incentivized to change nothing, that's a very big group. Hey, Inumers.
Hey, Anya.
Dropping a like will be back when reading is done. Well, when I'm done reading, the show is usually over, so this is, I mean, you can't see me doing the shoulder shrug like what's that supposed to mean? But that's what I'm doing. At my old
My
job,
guess is other reading.
at my old job, the new boss did this. Changed one thing at a time until a year later, in profit taking days to go to the ball game, changed for the better. Yeah, if you really want to change things, you do have to do it incrementally. I did pitch the idea 1 year because we were so far behind in like adjusting our rates to go with like what the current rate of inflation and cost of everything was. We got so far behind that I proposed we double our rate 1 year. And of course, I met with extreme resistance because the powers that be were like, well, we'll lose all our clients if we double the rate. And I'm like, well, no, you won't because you get comments about how under your charging you're doing from several of your clients already anyway. And I guarantee you all the rest of them have like tried calling other people. They know what this goes for. They know you're undercharging too. They're just not going to be so pro you that they point that out to you. But the people who are actually super on your side and supportive want to see you succeed. They know this. So we settled on a compromise of a significant increase on uh, existing clients and my doubled rate on all new clientele. And guess what happened? We didn't lose even a step in growth. Like all the new people came on at the new rate, and we told everybody what the rate was going to, but we were like, instead of going just straight like actual, we'll increase it by 25% each year coming up until we get to what the new standard rate's going to be. And I think we ended up losing like one old lady who was already like the most tightwad bitch you'll ever meet. You know, she wanted like the entire world given to her for free. Ah, I love you, Darth Hideous, but you better focus. Get to reading. This shit's relevant. I'm not just
You're
off in the weeds
actually
here.
probably doing the law without even reading it.
Yeah, I'm probably actually telling you everything that's about to happen in the law, but I think Bijou wants me to do some of the words. So I think that's enough uh, before the judgment. Let's get into judgment, shall we? Everyone understands the need for change in the abstract, but on the day to day level, people are creatures of habit. Too much innovation is traumatic and will lead to revolt. If you are new to a position of power or an outsider, oh, shout out to the outsiders, trying to build a power base, make a show of respecting the old way of doing things. If change is necessary, make it feel like a gentle improvement on the past. Okay, there's a bit to unpack here. Yes, this is what you point you were making. Too much innovation is traumatic and will lead to revolt.
Hmm.
That's that's true. People just they will absolutely like based on natural. I mean, look at Darth. He doesn't even need the book anymore. And I'm not sure if I ever actually needed the book, which is funny that you would mention that, Bijou, because oh my goodness, I had an idea come across my mind a couple of days ago. Now it's eating a giant hole in my brain, and oh my goodness, I can't be serious. I must not be serious. But anyway, we'll get to that later, so don't let me forget my idea. But this bit at the end here, the make a show of respecting the old way of doing things. If change is necessary, make it more people look fondly upon the past than people who look like hopefully into the future. Like when our innovations come to us, and I mean, I remember, no, I don't really remember because I was really, really young. But basically, when Bill Gates set out on his mission to put a personal computer in everyone's house, most of the people who were experts in these type of things, namely probably TV manufacturers, said that that was a ludicrous idea and it will never happen. Fast forward 30 something, 40 something years, he put a PC in almost every pocket. Like, I know Bill Gates did not invent the smartphone, but the personal computer is the reason the smartphone can exist today. The concept
Very
of the
true.
like graphic user interface, like I mean, they combine cell phone with computer. You can't or telephone with computer that you can put in your pocket. They wouldn't have done that if they hadn't had the baseline for like what a computer was and why you need it. But yeah, a, a lot of people, a lot of influential people thought that he was insane and that that was a ludicrous idea and it would never work. The PC's never going to catch on. Hell, I heard people who said the internet was not going to be the next big thing.
Oh yeah,
And I'm just
lot of stuff going around the internet.
and now I'm finally old enough. Like I'm hearing the damn boomers say AI is not the wave of the future, and I'm like, boomers, when are you ever going to be right about anything? The AI is coming, whether you like it or not. Is it the wave of the future? Absolutely. In ways you haven't even begun to imagine yet, because the AI is still an infant in its infancy. But yes, the changes, they're coming. And I've noted, yeah, it's a fad. That's what I heard that shit. The internet's just a fad. It's not going to be. And now Skynet exists. Hey, fish nerd. Hey, Castro, my savage. What's up, my dude? But
Skynet's
yeah, I
already
mean,
here.
I have a really good feeling that the way they have been implementing is in generally in accordance with this law. However, certain things like the explosion of the internet and the PC, like compared to technological advances before them, technology moved at a much slower rate. But ever since like everything became digital, now development happens in like months and years instead of decades or centuries. And we're just like, maybe we're moving a little too fast now. Maybe we need to slow down the implementation of radical change because it kind of seems to be driving humanity as a whole insane. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, Bijou? Like, fuck, I said Bijou. I was thinking it was Friday. Small Mouse, and I don't even talk to you enough. That's why. I'm sitting here reading what Biju's saying, and then it's like, I know I'm talking to Mousey, but
Well, we're
I see her
basically the
name.
same person
I
sometimes, so
mean,
you
you're
know
not
that
really
happens.
close to the same person at all. But will AI be a problem though? Will it be helping droids? Or, I mean, I think AI is like any other technology. It's going to be a bit of column A and a bit of column B. For example, when we split the atom and like took control of nuclear technology, what did we get from that? We got nuclear reactors that make the cleanest, most reliable, most cost effective energy in the world, and we got the atomic bomb. A little bit of good and a little bit of bad, depending on how you look at it. We need to get Mouse a taller chair, or a bigger podium. A bigger podium. That'd be the thing. Anyway, where was the question?
Uh, my thoughts on this?
Yeah, yeah. Your thoughts on the just the growth and change of. I mean, just take any social issue. Like, I mean, progressive
Well,
politics have gotten way more progressive.
yes, they have. Like everything's gotten more. It's like everything's moving faster now. But is really everything moving faster, or does it just feel that way?
I don't have like a full large enough scope of like the different change, but yeah, it feels like things that used to take decades to not so much to be developed, but to be adopted,
Yeah.
widely.
Like once they got, well, you've got to think about it. This has been something that's been in the works for a lot longer than you probably think. Like this is probably the way it was leading anyway. You start with the TV, you move to the computer. Then
Hmm.
you take the telephone and the TV, you combine them with the computer, you get the smartphone. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, you have to improve on everything. So it was always just a matter of time before everything ramped up. It's now technology's in everyone's home. We
Hmm.
keep thinking we need more and more technology. So
I'm not gonna lie, nobody needs a fucking smart refrigerator.
no,
Nobody
no,
ever,
no one
nobody
does.
will ever need that. In fact, oh, I have a smart coffee pot. Guess what? You don't need that either.
Yeah, I actually saw a video for one of those last
Why
night. I was like,
why is your
why?
coffee pot connected to the internet? Like,
And I mean, it's going to tell you what temperature to brew this particular coffee at. Like, come on.
is it going to play delicious coffee music while I'm trying to sip my coffee? Like, there's a radio too that's got like Spotify, like native app on the coffee pot. It's not necessary.
Probably. If
I've
not,
got
it will now.
I've got other things. Bijou.
Okay, the smart litter box, I'm with her on that because
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
a lot can be told from, an animal's, you
if
know,
you
litter habits.
if you had a smart robot that could do all your tank maintenance for you,
No,
would you?
no.
You just program it like, or it just scans like what type of life forms are in there, and then maintains it appropriately and perfectly every time. Or do you just like
No.
doing the tank maintenance yourself, like hands on?
I, I like being hands on. I mean, they're my animals.
Do you
You
pet
know,
your fish?
The snails I do, yes. The fish usually won't come close enough unless they're
Yeah.
trying to nip at you. So
Either that or you scoop them up in a net and then like pull them like near the surface. Like, I just want to give you a pet. It's why are you
you can
trying to
pet
swim
goldfish.
away? Yeah.
If I had goldfish, I could probably pet them, but
Yeah.
I don't have goldfish.
If you pet fish, you're a weirdo. That's like petting people who pet their lizards or their snakes. Like, I know somebody who used to sit and stroke the head of her bearded dragon. The dragon seemed to love it, but I'm like, that's a lizard. Put it back. Put it back where it belongs. Don't. That's not a dog. Get a dog if you want to pet your animal, or a cat if you want to pet it only sometimes when the cat feels like it. That's the way to go. I don't know what a weather loach is. Do you know what that is?
I honestly don't know. There's a
Okay.
lot of stuff in the fish keeping world I don't know yet.
Is it, I don't even know if that's fish related or not. Like, I'll be outside. I assume everything fish nerd says is fish related in some way, but yeah. Oh, okay. So we established like people do lose their minds if we change too much
Mhm.
up on them. I know chat's gonna get on my case because I'm changing up the like. You read the book and then you do talking. Now you're just doing talking, talking, talking. Get back to reading the book. So I better not change so much all at once. Oh, imagine this. Sometime in the early 1520s, King Henry VIII of England, so we got a King Henry instead of a King Louis, decided to divorce his wife. Do we know about uh King Henry Tudor? King Henry VIII, like very very famous guy.
Mhm. A lot of wives there. A lot of
Yeah,
wives.
decided to divorce his wife Catherine of Aragon because she failed to bear him a son and because he had fallen in love with a young and comely Anne Boleyn. The Pope Clement VII, we've been over this with these two, haven't we?
Mhm.
Opposed the divorce and threatened the king with excommunication. The king's most powerful minister, Cardinal Wolsey, also saw no need for divorce, and his half hearted support of the king cost him his position and soon his life. Spoiler warning, kids, wasn't the last. He might have been the first, but he was not the last.
A lot of people
One
like
man
that
in
guy.
Henry's cabinet, Thomas Cromwell. So me, I keep like clothes and sometimes like a pantry full of non-perishable food in the cabinet. Henry keeps people in his cabinets. But Thomas Cromwell here, the cabinet guy, not only supported him in his desire for a divorce, but had an idea for realizing it. A complete break with the past. So this guy is the guy that's responsible for what happens next. This Thomas Cromwell from the cabinet, he convinced the king that by severing ties with Rome and making himself the head of a newly formed English church, he could divorce Catherine and marry Anne. Not marry. He's not divorcing Catherine and Marianne. We're not on Gilligan's Island. He's going to wed Anne Boleyn. He's not going to divorce Catherine and Marianne. Just, I know some people won't be looking at the words on the screen and they'll be like confused. Like, wait, he's got two wives that he's divorcing? No. But by 1531, Henry saw this as the only solution to reward Cromwell for his simple but brilliant idea. He elevated this son of a whore, I mean blacksmith, to the post of royal counselor. I mean, I don't know what his mommy did for a living, but your father was a blacksmith. Your mother was a whore. By 1534, Cromwell had been named the king's secretary, and as the power behind the throne, had become the most powerful man in England. Huh, fancy. All because he had one good idea once upon a time. But for him, the break with Rome went beyond the satisfaction of the king's carnal desires. He envisioned a new Protestant order in England with the power of the Catholic Church smashed and its vast wealth, in the hands of the king and the government, which now includes a very nice high position for him specifically. So that's a lovely little self interest. Cats are better than dogs. Yes, I said it. Dogs are cool, but cats are, I mean, they are cold. And the difference between a dog and a cat is if you die, a cat will eat your face. A dog will eventually too, but a cat will do it immediately. In that same year, he initiated a complete survey of the churches and monasteries of England. And as it turned out, the treasures and monies that the churches had accumulated over the centuries were far more than he had imagined. His spies and agents came back with astonishing figures. Nobody here's surprised by this, right? Nobody?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's still that way today. The Catholic Church is, especially, but churches in general, just kind of that way. That's what they get for not paying taxes. They can just go ahead and give themselves inf wealth. To justify his schemes, Cromwell circulated stories about the corruption in the English monasteries, their abuse of power, their exploitation of the people they supposedly served. Having won Parliament's support for breaking up the monasteries, he began to seize their holdings and put them out of existence, one by one. At the same time, he began to impose Protestantism, introducing reforms in religious ritual and punishing those who stuck to Catholicism and who were now called heretics. Virtually overnight, England was converted to a new official religion. It's one thing for the king himself to break faith with the church. It's even another thing to like say, okay, we're gonna form the new Church of England. We're gonna break with the Roman Church. That's a rename. If they'd have kept the core tenets of Catholicism and not had a greedy uh, counselor trying to put all their wealth in his own pocket, they probably could have got this through a little easier. This is not going to go well. A terror fell on the country. Some people had suffered under the Catholic Church, which before the reforms had been immensely powerful. But most Britons had a strong tie to the Catholicism and to its comforting rituals. It was familiar. It was their religion, for fuck's sake. They watched in horror as churches were demolished. Images of the Madonna and saints were broken in pieces. Stained glass windows were smashed. Now that just makes me mad. Have you seen some of the like stained glass work in some of the like 17th century churches? It's
Hmm.
amazing. And these were even older than that, back when they still did like the real true stained glass, like which involves the lead and all of that.
Yep, rile people up. That's what you get.
Hmm. And the church's treasures were confiscated. That was the whole point. With monasteries that had succored the poor which means to aid and provide comfort, like suddenly gone. The poor now flooded the streets. Oh, this is how we started homelessness. We got rid of the monasteries, and then hundreds of years later, we got rid of the asylums.
Hmm.
We need to bring back the monasteries so that the monks can look after all these poor homeless people and put them to work. And then we can end government welfare and reform too many things at once. Oh my goodness, I broke the system again. Damn it, Darth. The
Well,
growing ranks of the beggar class were further swelled by former monks. On top of all this, Cromwell levied high taxes. Oh, great. To pay for his ecclesial, ecclesias, ecclesiastical. Fuck out of here with that word, reforms. I'm never going to say that shit again. It took me 3 times. I'm like, oh, that's not right, but ecclesiastical reforms. Yeah, fuck that word. You were going to say something right before that?
I would, yeah, that word is, yeah, I was going to say no.
No,
Good luck with that.
before that, like, we're flooding the
Oh, yeah,
streets with
yeah,
homeless people.
they,
And
they changed
I'm,
too much once, and then, all these people went homeless, but, he got what he wanted. Yay.
you know what I think is absolutely terrible? When
Mhm.
we passed the 19th Amendment, we changed way too much all at once. And it took us like 100 years to figure that out. But if we were to try to repeal that motherfucker, all the fanfare that passing it was not meant with, or met with, it will be met with all the fury and rage that you can even imagine. If we were like, yeah, we're gonna uh, end the experiment where we think women are actually responsible adult people, and we're gonna take away their voting privileges. Nope. Not only would you have like the women up in arms, and by up in arms I mean bitching, because well, we had to like fight wars and die for our right to vote. You're not gonna do that. Are you gonna fight men in your country to have a vote
Hey,
like
hey,
in
hey,
a
hey.
war? In a war, are you gonna
Not in
win?
a war, but
Of course
women
not.
did die
Yeah,
fighting for the right to vote.
yeah, of old age.
No,
They didn't have to go to war.
no, they didn't have to go to war, but women did lose lives because they were showing,
They were
that
committing terrorism. They should have
they
been
wanted
shot.
the same right.
Yeah, they should have been
You shot
shot.
your mom. Come on, come on.
Eh, you can have the rights when you can win that war. And then we should have shot more of them. And then they would have shut up and went away. Never mind, we don't really want to vote that much.
You really gonna go
I
to
came
war
up
with women?
I literally came up with a compromise. It is our duty to society, men, to fight and defend the freedoms, the women, the children, our way of life, right? We all can kind of collectively agree that that kind of falls on the men because women shouldn't be doing the war fighting and the freedom protecting and shit, you know? I think if we tied women's voting privileges to their societal cultural responsibilities, it would be at least a lot more fair and they would have to have skin in the game. So if a woman does not have at least 3 children, I don't think she should vote. But I think we can go ahead and say, since it's your job to make sure that we have another generation of humans to replace the one we got, we need a fertility rate of at least 2.2 to reach replacement levels and a fertility rate of 3 to have a healthy growing population. Okay, fine. You want to be able to vote? Once you have your third kid, boom, go ahead and stamp that voter's card. You now have fulfilled your obligation to society too. We'll do the fighting and defending and all the other things. Y'all make the babies. Bet you a lot less women would vote. I mean, we don't go to war either, so it's not like there's been a
Yeah,
draft in
but
my
women
lifetime.
can go to war now too. You
Yeah,
you
but
you know this.
you're not eligible to be drafted to go to war. That's the difference. Like,
Yeah, and we should. We absolutely
oh,
should. Women can
no,
do.
no, the fuck you should not. Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Under
yeah,
no
we should.
circumstances should women ever be eligible for the draft. You know
Okay,
what?
well, if we're gonna say that, no one should be drafted. But
It's no, but legitimately, it is bad enough with the women who volunteer to be there who are not qualified, trying to like force already unqualified people, women, to go do it by force. No, absolutely not.
I
No,
mean,
absolutely not.
if
No.
women, if everyone's gonna be treated the same, treat them all the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. Well, we're not the same though, and we got to stop pretending that we are. That's my opinion, but it doesn't seem like we're going to do that anytime soon. So,
Yeah, me and the Juju have actually had conversations about this. You'd
hmm
be surprised, but you know,
mm
humans
oh,
are
I wouldn't.
animals, right?
Absolutely.
We're animals.
We're the
The animal
smartest
kingdom,
animals, but we're
right?
still animals. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now follow me here, right? Have you like watched a lot of the animal kingdom, like in the wild, right?
I mean, not
Seahorses.
directly, but I've seen a lot of different
Okay.
creatures, yes, and their
Okay.
different dynamics.
Seahorses. Let's get
Oh,
aquatic since I do the aquatic
oh
thing.
God, no.
Seahorses actually raise the young. Like
Mm,
they carry them, they birth them,
uh-huh.
and
I know.
yeah.
It's weird.
So
Like,
they kind of have equal roles in everything.
yeah,
Like they care up.
they're also not a sexually dimorphic species either, and we could get into this, but we have nothing in common at all with seahorses. We're not fish species, Mousen.
No,
You know who
but
we have
the
common with? You know who our most common relative is in the animal kingdom? It's the chimpanzee. And
primates.
our
It's true.
society actually does function a very large amount like a chimpanzee troop. Tournament mating, the most powerful end up in control of the troop, and there's a significant amount of violence between the different troops. That's sea monkeys. That was the Great Sea Monkey Massacre of 2023. Do you remember? Pepperidge Farms remembers.
I knew the seahorses were going to brought into this. Well,
But no,
sea monkeys, they actually
yeah,
attach with each other.
y-
And once
y-
they attach, they stay together. Like they don't ever leave.
I'm not going to allow you to attempt a correlation between seahorses and humans right now. It's not going to happen because
But
we
animals in
are not
general.
fish.
No,
Yeah,
we're
I
not
mean,
fish, but we are animals.
you could say
And a
that.
lot of different things work for a lot of different animals.
Right, and usually if you dig a little bit deeper, you'll find out there's a like environmental reason why most of the shit works for them.
Yeah, but at least they don't have to vote.
Exactly. But don't they vote? Like I've seen lion prides vote like if a dominant male is like too aggressive, the beta males will collectivize and drive that male out of the pride, and then there will be blood feuding for who takes that place. You can see that in
Yeah.
lions. I
See,
think I think there are cases that have like I am no Jane Goodall or what was that other woman's name? Was it Jane Austen, the one who went to Africa and studied chimps for like I know Jane
I think
Goodall
that
I
was
think studied
yeah,
gorillas. Or was it
yeah.
chimps? I can't remember, but
I remember Travis the chimp tore a lady's face off, but that's a whole other story.
I remember that back in 28 was it 2016 they shot a gorilla in a zoo in Cincinnati and
Hmm.
that started the no, it isn't. It's not it's not pseudoscience. It's literally Yeah, Jane Goodall studied great apes. Yeah, the gorillas, silverback specifically. Alpha beta roles are completely observable behavioral characteristics, usually in sexually dimorphic species. You can see the alpha role in almost every type of pack animal, like wolves or chimps or lions,
Schooling
like
fish.
the only cat species that actually is a social species is the lion. Like every other species of great cats is they're all solitary creatures, right? And you'll see that alpha and beta characteristics in all of these species and in humans. It's not pseudoscience. It's just not. There are no hard laws to it, but it's definitely a real thing. Anyway,
So,
shall we
swimming in
move on a
books.
little bit?
Yes.
No, literally, like you can see this in the wild. I've seen it in chickens for fuck's sake. Ah,
Chickens are brutal.
celebrating. Let's see what this little insert. What was that though?
I said chickens are brutal.
Oh
A
dear
lot of
God! Don't
chickens.
get me started. Yeah, they are a like people say that like dinosaurs evolved into birds. Dinosaurs evolved into chickens specifically. That is why the chicken is such a violent species of bird. It's because it's like evolved from Tyrannosaurus raptors or something. Some sort of asshole species of dinosaur. Celebrating the turn of the year is an ancient custom. The Romans celebrated the Saturnalia, the festival of Saturn, god of the harvest, between December 17th and 23rd. Interesting time of the year.
Hmm.
It was the most cheerful festival of the year. All work and commerce stopped, and the streets were filled with crowds and a carnival atmosphere. Slaves were temporarily freed, and the houses were decorated with laurel branches. Temporarily freed? All right, we're gonna just put a
What?
cork in, or put a peg in that one for,
Yeah.
put a pin in that one for a second. Hopefully, I can come back to that. People visited one another, bringing gifts of wax candles and little clay figurines. Long before the birth of Christ Jesus, the Jews celebrated an 8-day festival of lights at the same season, and it is believed that the Germanic peoples held a great festival not only at midsummer, but also at the winter solstice when they celebrated the rebirth of the sun and honored the great fertility gods Wotan and Freya, Donar, Thor, and Freyr. Even after the Emperor Constantine, who was also a giant piece of shit, 306 to 337, declared Christianity to be Rome's official imperial religion, the evocation of lights and fertility as an important component of pre Christian midwinter celebrations could not be entirely suppressed. God, we were talking about this just yesterday. We didn't get too deep into this, but this has been a conversation that comes up so friggin' often lately. What's up, Go Hagen? People can try and deny it if they want, but when you walk into the room and there's a 6'5" guy with muscles on on his muscles carrying a Glock 19, you're going to feel the alpha and beta stuff. There's more to it than just that, but that's a very visceral description. Or if a woman's walking into a room and there's another woman with twice, yeah, I mean, yeah, there is always a hierarchy, and you're always going to have those who were born to lead and those who were not. Like that's the alpha and beta dynamic. Those who were born to follow will never be the alpha, and those who were born to lead usually don't find themselves following. Just as, just saying, you know. Mm, mm. In the year 274, the Roman Emperor Aurelian had established an official cult of the sun god Mithras, declaring his birthday, December 25th, a national holiday. The cult of Mithras, the Aryan god of light, had spread from Persia through Asia Minor to Greece, Rome, and as far as the Germanic lands and Britain. Numerous ruins of his shrine still testify to the high regard in which this god was held, especially by the Roman legions as a bringer of fertility, peace, and victory. So it was a clever move when, in the year 354, the Christian church under Pope Liberius co opted the birthday of Mithras and declared December 25th to be the birthday of Christ Jesus. This has been a thing that people have been, because of this right here, they've been, oh, when was Jesus actually born? In the spring, people. In the spring of the summertime. Like, you know how cold it is in the desert in the wintertime? That baby would have died. He didn't have the Jesus. I mean, he had that Jesus juice, but I mean, he might not have died, but his parents surely would have died. Having to sleep in a manger in the middle of winter. That's not a thing.
Hopefully, there's a lot of hay.
Yeah, I don't speak German as much as I would like to, so I'm not going to read you the title of the book that was pulled from. But that was Anne Suzanne Rischke if you want to go check it out. Eh, I don't know what that word is. Anywho, back to Henry VIII and his collapsing country of England. In 1535, powerful revolts in the north of England threatened to topple Henry from his throne. By the following year, he had suppressed the rebellions, but he had also begun to see the costs of Cromwell's reforms. The king himself had never wanted to go this far. He had only wanted a divorce. It was now Cromwell's turn to watch uneasily as the king began slowly to undo his reforms, reinstating Catholic sacraments and other rituals that Cromwell had outlawed. Isn't that what I said in the first place? Like,
Hmm.
you can go ahead and say, fuck the Roman Catholic Church, but when Roman Catholicism, Catholicism specifically, the traditions, the rituals, the not the like where we're loyal to, but the religion itself that we practice, you needed English Catholicism to be the I mean, the obvious replacement would not be Roman Catholic. We're going to be English Catholic. But we're still Catholic. The Roman Catholic Church does not recognize the English Catholic Church. The English Catholic Church didn't ask you, asshole. Would have been fine. But this guy, no, he wanted to basically change the whole shit all at once. Ayo, Fergolio, the frogget. Sensing his fall from grace, in 1540, Cromwell decided to regain Henry's favor with one throw of the dice. He would find the king a new wife. Henry's third wife, Jane Seymour, had died a few years before, and he had been pining for a new young queen, not penning, pining for a new young queen. It was Cromwell who found him one. Anne of Cleves. Didn't he already have an Anne? Wasn't his
Yeah, but
second
he didn't
wife an
like this
Anne?
man either.
A German princess, and, most important to Cromwell, a Protestant. You know what? If I'd have been King Henry VIII and Cromwell had brought me a Protestant girl after what I've seen he did to the church and how much trouble he caused with that, I'd have been like, instead of getting married, I'm going to have an execution tomorrow. You, head, bring it here. On Cromwell's commission, the painter Holbein produced a flattering portrait of Anne. When Henry saw it, he fell in love and agreed to marry her. Cromwell seemed back in favor. Unfortunately, however, Holbein's painting was highly idealized. And when the king finally met the princess, she did not please him in the least. Guys, guess what? We may have the oldest example of the modern day catfish on historical record, 1540. Holbein,
And the worst
king,
blind
king.
date.
Oh, I mean, but like bro, I seen her profile pic. Only in this case, it's a profile painting, and it's like, oh, hold up, you're holding the painting up next to her, like looking side by side. Holbein, could you get your ass in here? Holbein comes in, like, you see this? You point at one, you point at the other, like, do they look the same to you? And when he says yes, yeah, your head tomorrow as well. Absolutely. Hmm. His anger against Cromwell, first for the ill conceived reforms, now for saddling him with an unattractive and Protestant wife, could no longer be contained. In June of that year, Cromwell was arrested, charged as a Protestant extremist and a heretic, and sent to the Tower. 6 weeks later, before a large and enthusiastic crowd, which Darth Hideous is heading up with lots of clapping, the public executioner finally took this meddling little bastard's head. And thank God it was many moments too late. Monday, Lunas, Menadagar, Monday, Tuesday, Martes, wait, that's Tisdagar, I can't speak. What is that, Hungarian? Or like Norwegian? Some Slavic. Uh, he's going to lunes, martes, miércoles, jueves, viernes. Sir Ilan, bring me his head. Oh, They had a guillotine though. They weren't using swords. King Henry VIII was a big fan of the guillotine. Two Annes of Catherine, Catherine and Jane. Good old Henry. Like I think Cat was just an overused name. What do you think? That's a lot of
Very
cat.
overused name. That's a lot of cat.
Yeah, he killed cats.
Yeah. Killed cats and ants.
Cats and Annes. Yep.
And a
Little
Jane. They
ditty
both.
about cat and Diane. Get it, Diane. uh, now that I think about it, that princess who was the wasn't she the Princess of Wales and the most popular person on the planet before she was assassinated? Her name was Diana. I still believe that Queen Elizabeth killed that woman. That
Yeah,
fucking
I really think that was a setup right there.
terrible bitch. Like all because of jealousy. Because like literally
Even
becoming the
Booker.
most popular person in all the world. Did you know she had the most watched like televised public funeral in human like it's the most watched thing in the history of ever. 2 billion people tuned in to Princess Diana's funeral. Was it back in '93, I think?
Hmm.
But yeah, 2 billion people. That's the most watched thing that's ever happened. Was her funeral. That's crazy. That's
And her
fucking
wedding, man. That wedding was
crazy.
crazy.
Ah, it's Old Norse. Yeah, I mean, I didn't see the wedding. I didn't see the funeral. I was like a small boy, you know. '93. I was 9 years old. I didn't care nothing about this woman. I like as I got older and I heard this story, and then like I heard all the conspiracy theories. I remember seeing it on the news cycle when I was a kid. Like when it happened, it was 24/7 on the news cycle every single day for months.
I remember when Chernobyl melted down.
Oh my goodness. I think that's
I
even older
watched the
than I
heck
am.
out of I watched the heck out of that news story. It's like, are we all gonna, be irradiated or something? What's
Yeah,
happening?
I don't think they even knew at the time. Like that's why I think that was such a big deal because nobody
Yeah,
really
because they
knew. Like,
covered it up,
well,
or they tried to hide it.
right, yeah, Russia, the Russians actually was it '97? Oh wow, I must have been older than I thought.
Oh
But
wow.
anyway, like yeah, the problem with Chernobyl is that Russians had hidden the thing that was a problem for so long. Nobody knew what the extent of the damage was going to be. But to
Hmm.
that point, we'd never had a real nuclear reactor meltdown before, so
Well, we
we didn't
had,
really
just
have
not
anything.
of
Yeah,
that
nothing to that scale,
level.
but
Yeah.
nothing to compare that to. Like that's okay. I'm really worried about what they've built over in Japan now.
Oh, where Fukushima is?
I don't think it's where Fukushima was, but
It was.
they
Yeah.
have
I mean, it's
the
still there, just nothing
yeah
else.
they have built a new reactor in Japan, and it is a state of the art experimental fusion reactor.
Oh, we.
Hmm
You know,
Do, do, you,
nuclear
do,
power is just a real expensive way to boil some water.
oh yeah, and don't get me started on if we just dug a hole deep enough, we have a heat source that is infinite. Like at the core of this planet, Earth,
Hmm.
we have a molten core that geothermally keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter. So, like, we could boil some water with a geothermal plant and dig a hole big enough, make a plant big enough, we could power the whole Earth for free based on just heat that we already have in the middle of it. Believe it or not.
And the solar and the wind and the
Yeah,
water that already runs. Like, come
we don't
on.
need. Yeah, well, I was about to say we don't really even need any of that though, because like you said, nuclear is just a really expensive way to boil some water, and this is essentially free. And if we can master the ability to make one, we could probably put up a couple of them just to make them redundant at that point. But I've also talked about using the natural inflow and outflow of tidal shifts to basically create a two-way hydroelectric, like you would see in a dam, only in the ocean and like basically set in the ocean floor using just the sheer force of tidal shifts to create a constant flow of hydroelectric energy. But I think
So,
Japan's actually working on that idea. I think Japanese engineers are trying to figure out how to put one of those in the ground, or in the ocean, and not have it be destroyed by the reality of everything else that's the ocean.
you want us to focus?
Yeah, I'm getting the business. Interpretation. Thomas Cromwell had a simple idea. He would break up the power and wealth of the church and lay the foundation for Protestantism in England. And he would do this in a mercilessly short time. That's where he fucked up. He knew his speedy reforms would cause pain and resentment, but he thought these feelings would fade in a few years once people get used to it. More
Hmm.
important, by identifying himself with change, he would become the leader of the new order, making the king dependent on him. See, like his whole strategy hinged on his own personal benefit of being the guy who got to be in charge with this. But there was a problem in his strategy. Like a billiard ball hit too hard against the cushion, his reforms had reactions and caroms he did not envision and could not control. Everyone has got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Mike Tyson. That is a
Hmm.
quote. And that was Cromwell's issue is he had this great plan and he got punched in the mouth. Oh, cheers. Look at everybody cheersing. Cheers did he choose? Cheers.
It flew back and hit him right back in the face.
Yeah. The man who initiates strong reforms often becomes the scapegoat for any kind of dissatisfaction. There were people who hated the founding fathers who were still loyal to the British crown even after we won the Revolutionary War. They try really hard not to talk about these people, but they could have destroyed our republic when it was still in its infancy had our founding fathers not been as vigilant as they had. Ugh. And eventually, the reaction to his reforms may consume him, for change is upsetting to the human animal.
Hmm.
Human animal. What did you just say we were?
We're animals.
We're animals. We're aminals.
We are animals.
We are creatures of habit, which is one of my mother's favorite sayings. Like,
Hmm.
because when we're going somewhere, we'll have certain routes that she likes to take. And, like, oftentimes, because it's Michigan, it's like, oh, well, there's construction here and there's a bypass here. And it's like, I'll find us on that route that's like taking three times as long. It's like, why do you keep going this way? Like, there's a lot of obstructions here. It's like, this is just the way I always go. And I'm a creature of habit. Very, very not conducive to change. One of the very last people I knew, like my parents specifically, they were last on the smart, like they were quick on the internet because they saw the need for us to have it, like the kids. So they were quick
Hmm.
on getting that, but they didn't get smartphones, they didn't get smart TVs, and they didn't start using the actual internet themselves until like shit 2010, 11, 12 maybe. Like it really wasn't all that long ago compared to the fact that like I've been on for 25, 30 something years now on the because mom got the internet and the kids were the only ones who used it. They didn't ever use it for nothing. They
My
couldn't.
mother never used the internet
Hmm.
or a cell phone.
Yeah. The difference is your mother's probably some number near 20 ish older than you, if you're the oldest. Like, I don't even know, but my mother is like 12 years older than you are. Like, she's not even in her 60s yet. So she
Mhm.
wasn't like a boomer. She's like a very, very old Gen Xer. Like, the first generation of Gen X, they say, was 65, and that's my mom, right?
Okay, so
1965.
when my mom passed away in
Hmm.
2010, I was 31.
Right.
Okay. And
Hmm.
my mom was 67.
Ah, yes. So she was always a boomer, a very
Hmm.
like boomery boomer, old boomer. Oh, may she rest peacefully. And oh,
Yeah.
look
Hey,
who it
Melissa J.
is! It's Melissa Jane. Look who I've got here with me. I've got Smol Mousey. Hmm.
You in
Go
the
ahead. It
know.
says change is the only constant. And Jujubee is right. An organism does again and again what has been successful for the organism. That is how species survive.
Yes.
And we don't like being uncomfortable either. Like things that cause us discomfort, displeasure, and pain are shit our instincts teach us to avoid. So dramatic change of anything is going to upset our routines.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And, I was thinking about this. Like, it happens like everything you go through, right?
Uh-huh.
You go to school and you have to learn stuff, and things change, but they change slowly, like from grade
Well,
to grade.
but
And
that initial change of like being able to wake up, watch cartoons, play all day, like when you're 5 or 6, to go from that to the generally like I know most kindergartens, even when I was in school, were not a huge culture shock. Like it's not like going to school in China where there's instant like a very rigid structure even for the youngest children. Like they basically used kindergarten to like buffer you into what the structure was going to be for the next whatever years of your life. But like that was
Mhm.
a huge shock to go from like being at home with mom every day, or usually it was my grandpa because my mom was working and my grandpa was retired. So I got just like home every morning with grandpa to like going to school with a bunch of fucking other kids and a strange ass group of adults who I had no idea who these people were.
Mhm.
So that's a huge
And then,
culture shock.
yeah,
And,
and but then say you get injured, right? And
yep.
you have to go through physical therapy, and they have to
Hmm.
reteach you how to walk. Like, they don't just throw you in there and say go. They keep
Oh,
amping things up more and
oh,
more and more until you're doing more.
yeah.
So,
Imagine something even worse. Imagine going from being perfectly healthy, normally abled, to having like a catastrophic accident. Say you lose your legs at the knees.
yeah,
Suddenly, I don't give a fuck what kind of physical therapy they're giving you. They can't give you your legs back. I mean, sure they've got
nope,
prosthetics now and people are learning to like adapt, but a huge dramatic change all at once. You go
it's
from
gonna
being
be.
able to be a normal ass person to
Mhm.
being essentially invalid, a cripple, if you will. I know you're not supposed to say cripple anymore because it's not politically correct, but neither am I. So, fuck off.
You know what? I'll lead into the political correctness because you're right, because that would shake you up. That would
Oh
totally
yeah,
mess you up if you had all that change. But then let's lead into the political correctness. They
but
started that off real slowly.
oh yeah,
And, they started talking about the concept of being politically correct to
it, it,
actually using it.
Yeah.
And then
First, it was
mainstream
just
media
being
starts it.
polite, and then it was, well,
Hmm.
you can't say this because that's not polite. You can't say that because that's not politically correct. It was like basically doing politician speak, like trying to offend the least amount of people with the truth as you can, and then it just became, well, the truth is offensive, so we're gonna change that. And next thing you
Hmm.
know, men are women and Z's are Zers and don't dead name me, bro. And I'm just like, whoa, how the fuck
And
did we
then,
get here? Well, we got here one little short step at a time. First, it was
mhm.
don't judge me culturally for being gay, and then it was don't judge me culturally for being a woman, but you're not a woman. Well, don't judge me, bro. And then it was
But
I'm
then
gonna
you
judge
got to
you
include
if I
everyone. So
if you don't acknowledge all of my things that I pretend to be. I'm we're gonna not just judge you, we're gonna destroy your life, by the way. Oh. Oh shit. That well, I guess it's fighting time then, huh?
yeah, I mean, it starts off with one thing, and then before you know it, everything's changed.
Absolutely. In other
And I
words, it
think
could
started in the
always do
beginning.
be worse.
Yep. And like I said in the beginning, one moment you're saying Merry Christmas, and the next it's Happy Holidays.
Yep, and then the next it's Columbus Day is racist and we need to call it Indigenous Peoples Day. No, we don't.
Yeah, yeah. Let's actually just teach the history. It's
We
like
should we should we should celebrate this group of people for existing instead of celebrating greatness. And that's what they're trying to kill with all of this. Is they're trying to kill any concept of merit, greatness, or what makes us special and unique as a society because they want to kill the society. And the truth is very inconvenient to people who are lying to you. Absolutely. Anyway, before Bijou stings me again, because the world is always, or is and always has been, full of insecurity and threat, we latch on to familiar faces and create habits and rituals to make the world more comfortable. Comfortable because familiar. Change can be pleasant and even sometimes desirable in the abstract, but too much of it creates an anxiety that will stir and boil beneath the surface and then eventually erupt, especially if that change turns out not to be for what the majority find as the better. Never underestimate the hidden conservatism of those around you. And I will go so far as to just give a small aside to all of these people that are pushing for the most nonsensical of progressive nonsense. Like, I'll use an example group. You've all seen the meme where the kids are holding the sign that says gays for, I think it was gays for Palestine. And then you see in the other sign, like a couple of Muslim guys about to toss a dude off the roof and it says Palestine for gays. A lot of people desire change in the abstract because they've never actually experienced the change that they're calling for in real life. You'll find once they get what they're pushing for, that hidden conservatism that they're talking about right here, I didn't, this is not what I meant. This is what you asked for. So be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. Ah, it is powerful and entrenched. The hidden conservatism is. Never let the seductive charm of an idea cloud your reason. Myself, as a wonderful additional example, I believe that we don't need the government and we are perfectly capable of governing ourselves. Like, if all the government agents just disappeared right now, and we didn't know, life would just go on the way it's going on right now. However, I know that that's one of those ideals that's like perfect communism. People aren't capable of actually self governing in reality. Like, in theory, we are, because in general, we mostly do, but we do so under the pretext and auspice that we have the government there taking care of things, or they're supposed to be anyway. They're looking out and representing the will of the people. They're not, but we pretend they are anyway, because acknowledging the reality of that is also painful. Just as you cannot make people see the world your way, you cannot wrench them into the future with painful changes. They will rebel. If reform is necessary, anticipate the reaction against it and find ways to disguise the change and sweeten the poison. Yeah, like when they wanted to take the idea of America and what it used to stand for, like what it originally stood for, America. It was not a land that stood for democracy. It was not a place that stood for equality. In fact, the power was very, very limited to those who had skin in the game. Like, if you wanted to have authority, you had to be a wealthy, tax paying landholder, because that's how we collected taxes back in original America. And only those people could have a say. And that franchise has been expanded over the years, and less did freedom become our core value, and more did stability, equality, and democracy, which is all like collectivist nonsense for the tyranny of the weak over the strong and productive. We need government to do what it was intended to do: defend our borders, mitigate between the states, uh, uphold and enforce the Constitution, and protect the vote? Huh. Huh. I think that's what it was originally intended to do. Roads, water, power, that didn't have shit to do with it. Law and order did. But, I mean, we could do the roads, water, power, all of that shit with the private sector. We don't need the government to do any of that shit. We definitely don't need them to do education, and we don't need 50 million different law enforcement agencies within the government. I mean, one or two will do just fine, thank you. We definitely don't need like a four-tiered justice system and all of that nonsense, but we've fallen a long way from our original vision. Oh no, I think we've lost the mouse and she has gone
Can you hear
muted.
me?
Oh, there you are.
I don't know what happened there. All of a sudden, I was just mute. I was like, "Whoa,
Mm,
that's
I,
crazy."
I did not mute you, so
The ghost in the machine did it.
uh-huh.
Hmm.
Oh, this is gonna be fun. Who did I mention as a uh as somebody who dramatically changed the society, but did so as a young communist in the 1920s? Mao Zedong. No, I reference him because he does a lot of government referencing, and
Hmm.
yeah, he loves Mao
Hmm.
Zedong. Understood better than any of his colleagues the incredible odds against a communist victory in China. With their small numbers, limited funds, lack of military experience, hatred for food, and small arsenal of weapons. I added that hatred for food part because it is well documented that communists hate food, and I could see that Robert Greene was not going to list that as one of the like features of the Communist Party. The party had no hope of success unless it won over China's immense peasant population. But who in the world was more conservative, more rooted in tradition than the Chinese peasantry? Nobody, I'll tell you that. The oldest civilization on the planet had a history that would never loosen its power, no matter how violent the revolution. The ideas of Confucius remained as alive in the 1920s as they had been in the 6th century BC when the philosopher was alive. Thousands of years. Thousands of years. Despite the oppressions of the current system, would the peasantry ever give up the deep rooted values of the past for the great unknown of communism? Lord God, no! Please say it ain't so! Spoiler warning, y'all.
They did.
Spoiler warning, y'all. We're now 100 years after that, and they do this thing. The solution, as Mao saw it, involved a simple deception. Cloak the revolution in the clothing of the past, making it comforting and legitimate in people's eyes. One of Mao's favorite books was the very popular medieval Chinese novel, The Water Margin, which recounts the exploits of a Chinese Robin Hood and his robber band as they struggle against a corrupt and evil monarch. In China, in Mao's time, family ties dominated over any other kind. For the Confucian hierarchy of father and oldest son remained firmly in place. But the water margin preached a superior value, the fraternal ties of the band of robbers, the nobility of the cause that unites people beyond blood. Aha! When you hear people say that 1984 wasn't supposed to be an instruction manual, neither was this. But the Chinese will, or the communists, not the Chinese. The communists will steal anything they can make use of because they can't make anything useful themselves. Communism can only destroy. However, the novel had a great emotional resonance for Chinese people who love to root for the underdog. Time and again, then, Mao would present his revolutionary army as an extension of the robber band in the water margin, likening his struggle to the timeless conflict between the oppressed peasantry and an evil emperor. He made the past seem to envelop and legitimize the communist cause. He co opted. The peasantry could feel comfortable with and even support a group with such roots in the past. So I just saw this on a podcast like yesterday or the day before. Like when the different communist revolutions happened, like the cultures of the people in the places that they happened in were very different, like China, Soviet Russia, like the people who led these revolutions had to tailor the message of their cause to the culture of the people they were selling it to. So Stalin's communism was not Mao's communism. Mao's communism was not the same as what is his name? Not Maduro, Chavez in Venezuela, and his communism is not the same as Castro's communism, and none of their communism is the same as Greta Thunberg's communism. Greta Thunberg, a great and glorious communist dictator leader, Greta Thunberg, and Klaus Schwab. Mao Zedong. I see what you did there. Even once the party came to power, Mao continued to associate it with the past. He presented himself to the masses not as a Chinese Lenin, but as a modern Chuko Liang, who, if you don't remember the last time we talked about him, he's a strategist who is a very big uniter. The real life third century strategist who figures prominently in the popular historical novel, The Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Yeah, he ended up uniting all of those kingdoms. Liang was more than a great general. He was a poet, a philosopher, and a figure of stern moral rectitude. That's a great word because it sounds like something that should be in a degenerate porno movie. Rectitude. It's in fact the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So Mao represented himself as a poet warrior like Liang, a man who mixed strategy with philosophy and preached a new ethics. He made himself appear like a hero from the great Chinese tradition of warrior statesmen. He basically stole his whole image from way better men who actually did things for the good of people. Of course, in Mao's little commie mind, he thought he was doing good for people too. At least we want to believe he did. Spoiler warning, y'all. He don't. Soon, everything in Mao's speeches and writings had a reference to an earlier period in Chinese history, plagiarizing and stealing other people's credit. He recalled, for example, the great Emperor Qin. So, Bruce Campbell then? Emperor Qin? I mean, when I
He does
think
have a good chin.
when I think of Qin, I think of like Jay Leno and Bruce Campbell for totally different
Yeah.
reasons. Uh, who had unified the country in the 3rd century BC. Qin had burned the works of Confucius, consolidated and completed the building of the Great Wall, and given his name to China. China? Oh my goodness. Like Qin, Mao had also brought the country together and had sought bold reforms against an oppressive past. Qin had traditionally been seen as a violent dictator whose reign was short. The brilliance of Mao's strategy was to turn this around. simultaneously reinterpreting Qin, justifying his rule in the eyes of present day Chinese, and using him to justify the violence of the new order that Mao himself was creating. Oh my goodness. Anybody here a student of history? Anyone know how much violence we got out of
A
that?
lot of violence.
A lot of violence, a lot of violence. Gohagen made a note earlier, said he holds the title currently, and that would be Mao Zedong holds the title for people murdered in the name of communism, and also people's. If you add the people who starved to death after the people that were murdered, that 20 million number goes right up near somewhere between 80 and 100 million estimated.
Yeah, communists and violence
Food,
seems to go
yeah,
together.
communists love violence and hate food.
Well, I just think they hate
That's
sharing
why they.
food.
That's why they always kill the farmers. And they're like, I literally heard a interview like the new rising power in South Africa was doing the chants of kill the farmers. And I'm like, y'all motherfuckers literally did this like 30 years ago. Did you not learn your lesson then? Nope. You're going to. I mean, they did it in, was it Rwanda? Or I think it's whatever's modern day Zimbabwe. Rhodesia? Rwanda? I think Rwanda is the one. They genocide the farmers, and then nobody knows how to farm, and they all starve to death. And then it's, please, please come back, farmers. And it's like, no,
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be a farmer either. Like, nope, I don't know how
absolutely
to
not.
garden. Nothing.
Nope. After the failed Cultural Revolution of the late 1960s, a power struggle emerged in the Communist Party in which Mao's main foe was Lin Piao, once a close friend of his. To make clear to the masses the difference between his philosophy and Lin's, Mao once again exploited the past. He cast his opponent as representing Confucius, a philosopher Lin, in fact, would constantly quote. And Confucius signified the conservatism of the past. Mao associated himself, on the other hand, with the ancient philosophical movement known as legalism, exemplified by the writings of Han Fei Su. The legalist disdained Confucian ethics. They believed in the need for violence to create a new order. They worshipped power. To give himself weight in the struggle, Mao unleashed a nationwide propaganda campaign against Confucius using the issues of Confucianism versus legalism. I mean, not to throw us way off track, but do you hear like the established power trying to associate the current rising power with like Nazism and basically just Nazism over and over again? Nazi, 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 Nazi. Like, if you disagree with anything and you're like the worst part of the past, that's what Mao was doing to Lin Fei Su, to Lin, was it Lin Piao? Piao? He's doing to his political opponent the exact same thing. Like, associate him with the past, the worst parts of it, where they associate themselves with like everything they've conditioned us to think was great, like the civil rights movement and equality and all types of other bullshit that ain't real. And all the communist ideals without like just coming out and calling it communism. Maybe it's because of all the dead people and the starvation that they don't want to admit what they're really selling. It's democratic socialism. Oh, really? Well, explain it to me. Well, and then they explain it, and it's like, oh, that's just communism. Yes,
Mhm.
comrade. It always has been. And if you look at environmentalism and feminism and veganism and like whatever ism that has an activist group, everything they espouse and promote is all just more communism, just repackaged, rebranded, and slammed into a different plastic lunchbox. Anyway, we're using the issues of Confucianism versus legalism to whip the young into a kind of frenzied revolt against the older generation. Because I'll tell you what, there's no quicker way to get a revolution shoved through like quickly and violently than to get the young and the young people with the capacity for violence, like the physical ability to do violence, to the old and infirm and genuinely like to all my boomer buddies who think they would win a war with the millennials. You're not only so wrong. If that war actually went down, you'd be so fucked, so fucked, boomer bros. But I do still hear boomers to this day like, oh, young kids these days, they're not nearly tough enough. We'd kick their asses. Like, you can't even get out of bed without limping, old man. Shut up. Let's have this fight real quick before I can't get out of bed without limping. Because my time's coming, damn it. But yeah, old people fighting young people, never going to work out real well for the old people in mass, you know? No offense. Yep. And that's the concept of it is like a community where everybody is equal. And it's like they want to destroy the nuclear family. Well, what they want is no one fights anymore. I don't know about all that. I see a lot of people fighting, a lot of violent people. Nobody fights for anything worth fighting for anymore, but they still fight. Go Hagen, they still fight. Mm. Anyway, getting way off target because I swear to God, it's probably a good thing I didn't decide to do this entire series with Go Hagen because every single one of these shows would go 5 hours minimum.
Hey, that's not a bad thing.
I mean, nobody wants to watch a 5 hour podcast.
Well, that's true. You watch it in parts though. You come back to
Yeah.
it.
This grand context enveloped a rather banal power struggle, and Mao once again won over the masses and triumphed over his enemies. Yep, young people beat old people in a fight, especially a violent one. Interpretation. No people had a more profound attachment to the past than the Chinese. I mean, they say that the Chinese Empire before Mao had stood for 10,000 years. But it was far and away like the oldest empire in all the world, y'all. Like, in the face of this enormous obstacle to reform, Mao's strategy was simple. Instead of struggling against the past, he turned it to his advantage, associating his radical communists with the romantic figures of Chinese history, all of whom were revolutionary in their own regard. But because they were past revolutionaries, they were looked upon fondly. It's only the current radicals that we look upon as people who want to kill, enslave, and starve us all to death. That's because we look on the past not so fondly anymore.
Oh,
weaving the story. What? Oh, was there
I was gonna
something
say,
there?
well, the past tends to repeat itself sometimes,
Uh,
if people forget.
I actually, I can't remember exactly what this phrase was, but it doesn't really repeat itself. It echoes and it rhymes because you're never gonna see a clean repeat, but you're gonna see a pattern of trends, if you will, that will be different as time goes on and cultures change. But the trending pattern, like that one that I'm constantly referencing with the strong men who create the good times, that create the weak men, that create the hard times, that create the strong men, and that cycle is constantly continuing. Like it's never the history repeating itself, but historical patterns and trends do come cyclically as great empires rise and fall all through history, from the Greeks to the Persians to the Romans to the Chinese. And now, guess what? Don't laugh, America. You're next. And you didn't even make it like 300 years.
I know, isn't that sad?
I mean, we were too radical of an idea. We changed too fast. And if you think about the fact that this country is like 280 something fucking years old, or pretty like 200 and what is it? 278 years old now. We'll be 280 and 26 or 270. I don't even remember. Yeah, we're not even 300 years old yet. And the look at what all we've been through as an empire in that amount of time, and look how drastically the world has changed between 1776 and 2024. That was what I was kind of getting at way back at the beginning of the stream, when it's like, yeah, once upon a time, like you could invent something that would be world changing, but because we didn't have like global distribution networks and multiple different like we have air travel, sea travel, we've got like FedEx, UPS, Amazon, next day shipping internationally, and we've got the internet that can sell you changes at the touch of a button in microseconds. Like literally we're living in the microsec like so back in the day you could invent something cool, but in order to implement like a mass adoption of that thing, it took years and years and years to both like create enough of them and spread them. But like with industrialism and then digitization, like you can sell super dramatic, like culture shocking change overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Elon Musk's little brain chip Neuralink is going to be the next big fucking culture shift when that starts becoming the new popular trend and everybody starts adopting the brain chip. Then it'll be a lot like cell phones and the internet. You'll have the Luddites who won't get it, and then everybody else who will love the next big thing.
Are you gonna put a chip in your brain?
I haven't decided yet.
I don't think I'm letting anyone do that. Sorry.
Uh,
Great as it may be, too old
I
for
don't
all
know.
that.
I imagine like being able to have a psychic uplink with your favorite people at all times. And if you actually look into Neuralink outside of what Elon Musk's like grand plan for it is, like it's literally supposed to be a medical thing that repairs neural pathways in the brain. Like the first stages of Neuralink are going to restore sight to the blind, or cure Alzheimer's and dementia, like or cure people's paralysis and shit, like repairing of neural pathways, which is what Neuralink means. It means actually relinking your broken neural pathways. In that regard, for medical applications, if he can use it to repair neural pathways, restore sight to the blind, give a paralyzed man his legs back, uh, reverse Alzheimer's and dementia. Yeah, I'm 100% for that shit. I mean, but inevitably he's going to want to link them all together with the internet. That shit I'd be a whole lot more hesitant with. But
Yeah.
based on, like, you can't deny, like, the medical applications if he could actually repair the neural pathways in people's broken brains.
Yeah, I just
Oh,
don't
man.
think we're there yet, though.
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet either, but I think we're gonna get there so much quicker than people realize that when we have this conversation, when we actually are there, you and I are gonna be like, "Damn, didn't we just have this conversation yesterday?" It feels like it
Probably
because
will.
of how quick this shit actually does develop. Now, I don't even know if he can repair Go Hagen, you could by that same logic, you could say that the harvesting and production of penicillin is playing God. Any sort of medical science could be called playing God. Think about that. What like there's no actual practical applicable difference though. What and anything you do to extend someone's life so that they don't die completely naturally could be construed as playing God by that same very flawed, very weak logic. So, like, do we go back to being cave dwelling, like Neanderthals then? Or do we use the abilities that God gave us when we were built in his image? We were built in his image. That means we have some of that power that he's got. We have the power to create things out of things that should not be. Were we not intended to use that? That's a greater philosophical debate for a much different time than this because I could go on this one for a long time. Did we even start the interpretation yet?
I don't think so.
No people had okay. Actually, we did.
Oh, we did. Okay.
Weaving the story of the War of the Three Kingdoms into the struggle between the United States, the Soviet Union, and China, he cast himself as Shuko Liang, and the as the emperors had, he welcomed the cult-like adoration of the masses, understanding that the Chinese could not function without some kind of father figure to admire. And after he made a terrible blunder with the Great Leap Forward, trying to force modernization on the country and failing miserably, he never repeated his mistake. From then on, radical change had to be cloaked in the comfortable clothes of the past. The lesson is simple. The past is powerful. What has happened before seems greater because it's actually something we can tangibly quantify versus the unknown, which is never tangible or quantifiable. Habit and history give any act weight. Like I said, it's quantifiable. Use this to your advantage. When you destroy the familiar, you create a void or vacuum. People fear the chaos that will flood in to fill it. That was my initial interpretation on the prejudgment is that anytime you reform things too fast, you destroy the familiar, you create that vacuum, and the chaos floods. And then something fills the void inevitably. You must avoid stirring up such fears at all costs. Borrow the weight and legitimacy from the past, however remote, to create a comforting and familiar presence. This will give your actions romantic associations, add to your presence, and cloak the nature of the changes you are attempting. I'm trying to think of a real life example where I had to, like, I mean, other than the one I gave earlier about like having to modernize our business into like proper, uh, the proper price range because we were way undercharging. Oh my goodness, Gohagen's in one of his moods. Uh, that says 322, but it doesn't actually say which 3 and which 22. And the Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us to know good. Oh, so Genesis 3:22 then. And now lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Well, we already fucked that up then, didn't we? Well, the moment I started reading it, I figured out which 322 that was. Yeah, because we're still in the garden at the time. But yeah, I mean, we broke that red line then, so now we got to play within the game that we've created for ourselves. We just agree to disagree on this one, I think.
Mm, I agree to disagree. I don't even have a ball in this court, but I'll do that.
So what?
I
Do
said
you
I
have
don't
to?
even have a ball in this court. I'll agree to disagree.
Uh huh.
Mhm.
It must be considered that there is nothing more difficult to carry out, nor more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to handle than to initiate a new order of things. Machiavelli. Machiavelli is wise, not only wise beyond his years, but his wisdom has withstood the centuries. That is why the prince is definitely going to be in the rotation at some point.
Mhm.
Keys to power. I figured that this law would be rather short, rather direct and to the point because just reading the title, like, I knew the mirror thing was going to be a long one because there was a lot of different aspects to it, but I can always sense the ones that are just like, yeah, that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And this one was like, yeah, this should be a very straightforward one. So it looks like we're getting closer to the end now. Keys to power. Human psychology contains many dualities. One of them being that even while people understand the need for change, knowing how important it is for institutions and individuals to be occasionally renewed, they are also irritated and upset by changes that affect them personally.
Mhm.
People are creatures of habit. People do not like their habits to be disrupted. Makes people uncomfortable to have to change.
Or to
My
be
mother.
told they have to
Oh,
change.
especially if you're not willingly adopting the change yourself. I
Hmm.
I will have another perfect example here. Once upon a time back in 2013, I got a little message on my computer that said Windows was officially ending all further support for the XP operating system. Guess
That
who
was
was
fall
still
times.
guess who was still running Windows XP in 2013 when we had Windows Vista, Windows 7 and Windows 8 had already been released. Guess who was still running XP? This guy right here. And man, oh man, after having played with the operating system on Vista and on 7 and on 8, I was so fucking sad when they said they would no longer be doing any more security updates or fixes for Windows XP because then I knew all the programs that I use would stop actually being written with XP support in mind.
Hmm.
And I had to, I think I went straight to Windows 10 after that. Yeah, Cat Ninja was just as upset as I was. A lot of people were upset. Like,
I
I think
was too.
I think that was one of the most like because it was an operating system that had no major flaws. Like, yes, we need change, but change for change's sake alone should be discouraged. That's a Dolores Umbridge quote. And who would ever thought I'd be quoting that character? But yeah, I mean, sometimes like not all change is good, and change just for change's sake with no clear vision of how this is going to make lives better for people. Just yeah, I mean, not good. They know that change is necessary and that novelty provides relief from boredom. But deep inside, they cling to the past. Change in the abstract or superficial change they desire, but a change that upsets core habits and routines is deeply disturbing to them. No revolution has gone without a powerful later reaction against it. For in the long run, the void it creates proves too unsettling to the human animal, who unconsciously associates such voids with death and chaos. The opportunity for change and renewal seduces people to the side of the revolution. But once their enthusiasm fades, which it will, they are left with a certain emptiness. I feel like we're looking at this right now in the current revolution. I feel like a lot of people are realizing that there's a hollowness and an emptiness to it. Yearning for the past, they create an opening for it to creep back in. And I know this because I've heard through all the pollsters and all the people who observe the cultural trends that the current upcoming generation, which is known as Gen Alpha, which I think is just a gangster name for this particular group of kids, is actually trending more conservative because we've gotten so fucking liberal with our nonsense and our crazy and our viewpoints that to the new revolution in counterculturalism is conservatism. And that is the machine that is the like the wheel trying to balance itself, I think. Because in a world where like nothing that we grew up with that was edgy, like the goth look or the tattoos or the piercings or the funny colored hair, like all that shit that was really edgy and counterculture before is now so damn mainstream, and it's like either go even more extreme with it or make normal the new extreme. And you see that happening. Like they're more conservative than Gen Z. They're way more conservative than the millennials. Actually, I think the millennials are more conservative than Gen Z, and then it trends back more conservative. I think Gen Z is kind of like the pinnacle of stupidity as far as like what people believe, but
Yeah, I have a whole thing on normal too, but that's for another time because we'll go deep into that one. But
right.
you know, one day we're gonna wake up and it's either gonna be one way or it's gonna be like Hunger Games next week.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be going that way. Cat Ninja said full circle, and Mike Gohagan said is now hipster. Uh, Jeremiah 6:16. Stand ye in the ways, and see and ask for the old paths. Where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. Thank you, Squab. That was lovely and so poignant. Like
Very fitting.
for Machiavelli, the prophet who preaches and brings change can only survive by taking up arms. When the masses inevitably yearn for the past, he must be ready to use force. This is unfortunately something that I have realized because I claim that we should cut all the welfare that the government gives to not just people but corporations, like any program that involves the government taking wealth and redistributing it elsewhere needs to go. And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, well people will revolt, people will riot. What are you going to do about that?" Unfortunately, the correct answer is you have to shoot them when they revolt and want their free Gibbs me that's back because no, you don't get your Gibbs me that's anymore. Now figure out how to get your own shit or we're going to shoot more of you. I don't want that to be the case, but unfortunately, people are so dependent on the system that they will fight violently to defend it at this point. Oh, and cheers to everybody. I see you in the chat. Adequate alcohol. I see you out here. Let's do a head count and a roll call since it's cheersing time and I'm probably going to choke. We have one on Zitter, 9 on YouTube, and drum roll please. But 7. 7 on Rumble? Oh, must be something going on. Like, that's a light number for tonight.
Yeah. Well, it is Monday.
Yeah, it is Monday, and usually my Mondays are the lightest streams as far as traffic goes. Like, they're usually the ones that have the most uh replay gang crew. So like I'll see the number low and then I'll come back tomorrow and it'll like double. Fridays usually it's like everybody's there and once I've got the views that I'm gonna get on it while it's live, that's literally about all it's gonna get. And yeah, Wednesday's kind of 50-50, you know. Sometimes they're my best viewership nights. Sometimes they're like Monday. But anyway, must be ready to use force. That's the unfortunate part. Like you have to shoot the people who want to drag you back to the past. But the armed prophet cannot last long unless he quickly creates a new set of values and rituals to replace the old ones and to soothe the anxieties of those who dread change. So you need to restore order as quickly as possible, which is why I use the American Revolution as a reference. It would not have gone as smoothly as it had, except for they had a very, very, very well thought out plan for exactly what to implement when the chaos and fighting ended. And thus they soothed these anxieties and made the transition from the British colonies to the United States of America in almost unprecedented ease and smooth. And this was like the idea of a free nation was a radical idea. It had never been done before to any scale since like Greece,
Hmm.
the free collection of city states of the the Greeks thousands years before. It is far easier and less bloody to play a kind of con game. Preach change as much as you like, Mr. Ramaswamy, and even enact your reforms, but give them the comforting appearance of older events and traditions. That's why when Ramaswamy does all his preaching of all these incredible reforms, he does use the imagery and the invoking of the founding fathers and the Declaration of Independence and the original 1776 as part of his like branding for his shit. Like, I agree that our government has become tyrannical and totalitarian. I agree that this is how you deal with the tyrannical, totalitarian folks. That tree of liberty gets refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants. However, people haven't gotten to the point yet where they're at fuck it, so and I think largely to the point where people are sick of it. If they did do the revolution, what they would want to replace it with would be literally just this exact same thing, but from like 30 years ago. And that wouldn't solve anything. We would still end up right back where we are immediately because we don't have the culture to support the radical change. You know what I mean?
I do.
And to the extent that a lot of the people who, I mean, the blood that would ensue, like a lot of the lowest among us are going to be at the top of the list for not likely to survive this. The people who have the least power. I just don't know if we could ever reach a rebalancing point where common sense and foresight and even historical reference come back into play when we make decisions about what we're going to do as a society going forward. Reigning from 8 to 23 AD, the Chinese Emperor Wang Mang, Wang Mang, Wang Mang emerged from a period of great historical turbulence in which the people yearned for order, and order represented for them by Confucius. Some 200 years earlier, however, Emperor Qin had ordered the writings of Confucius burned. We just talked about that a little bit ago. A few years later, word had spread that certain texts had miraculously survived, as they do, hidden under the scholar's house. These texts may not have been genuine, but they gave Wang his opportunity. He first confiscated them, then had his scribes insert passages into them that seemed to support the changes he had been imposing on the country. When he released the text, it seemed that Confucius sanctioned Wang's reforms, and the people felt comforted and accepted them more easily.
That's
Why,
pretty.
that's brilliant. Like
Mhm.
that's how you rewrite history. Like first you destroy it, and then you rewrite it to support whatever the fuck you're trying to make the future.
Pretty scary though, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely terrifying, especially when you see this shit literally happening right now. Not
Hmm.
so much in our religious texts, although it is in our religious teachings, but like what we consider scholarly, like our education system, is doing this very thing where they're trying to, and this is one thing that like I've been preaching on and harping on. people are like, look at what they're teaching our kids in schools right now that they're all outraged about. It's like, were you not paying attention over the last 30 years when they took all of the useful teaching out of schools? Like, they got rid of like practical shop class. They got rid
Hmm.
of like government class and economics class, like the funding for all. But I mean, if you threaten to cut the art program, oh my God, the news you would, oh my God, they're trying to cut the art program, blah blah. We gotta save the art program. Meanwhile, they're
Can't touch arts
literally,
and sports.
yeah, they cut the government program, economics, like a lot of useful skill classes. Uh, the school I went to in Grand Rapids, there was a county technical center, like the Kent Career Tech. It was basically a publicly funded like trade school,
Hmm.
and you could get high school credits. Like 3 years after I graduated, they cut all funding for that. So the only people that can attend that now have to pay a tuition and don't get high school credit for it anymore. You literally have to do it completely independently because the school will no longer fund that program. It's absolute
Well,
bullshit.
when okay, me and my older sister are 10 years
Hmm.
apart in age, right? She went to high school. They actually had a nursing program
Right. And
that
we had
helped
some,
kids to get into that field, right?
yeah,
To start their way on that path.
yeah, we,
By
we
the
had
time,
a similar program as a
mhm,
partnership with our local hospital that
no,
a lot of young people could go and like do shadowing work and be responsible for some limited shit, but
yeah,
because of like strict child labor laws, like there was, and it wasn't actually a classroom setting, it was an actual hospital. So there was a little bit more limited. But yeah, like even at that place that I was talking about, the tech center, they had a lot of courses like that were like hands on nursing shit and uh other like all types of different fields from like culinary shit like
mhm,
actual like commercial grade kitchen work and whatnot, automotive mechanics, airplane mechanics, like basic carpentry, advanced carpentry, like lathe work. They had a CNC machine in there, for fuck's sake, like a
mhm,
big industrial CNC router machine. And
yeah.
I'm like, man,
Well, okay, so like we had that kind of stuff too. Okay,
but
my sister graduated
right,
in '87.
right, I was 3. Okay,
Okay, yeah,
right.
but this just shows you like these changes had
Oh yeah,
started earlier
like I
on.
said, right. Go ahead.
But by the time I got into high school,
Hmm.
they were already gone.
Oh yeah, and you graduated way before I ever did,
Mhm.
because
In
it's because you're like 6 years older than me.
Yeah, I graduated in '97.
Hmm. I graduated in 2003, so but yeah, I mean, in 3 years, like, and I lived in a fairly well-to-do area, a district with the money to support this kind of shit, which is why we were one of the last districts to actually drop it. But yeah, like I don't think that Tech Center has any of the public schools funding any of their programs anymore. I don't even know if it still exists because it was so long ago. But yeah, I found out that my sister, who graduated in 2007, never had that as an option as a high schooler.
Hmm.
Baki and my sister are the same age. Maybe.
So yeah, I mean it's
Yeah, I mean,
crazy
they
changes that they start
they
implementing and you don't even realize.
they yanked out most of the useful education and then replaced it with bullshit incrementally over like 40 years and completely changed our education system. But people are acting like this shit is new. It's like, no, stop bitching about what they're putting in and go back 30, 40 years and look at what they took away first. That's where the problem initiated, not what they're adding, but what they took out first.
Hmm.
Basic human biology. That's one thing. Okay, fine, Bijou, shut up. Understand, the fact that the past is dead and buried gives you the freedom to reinterpret it. Do you not know? Hold on, I I I'm gonna let my irritation get under my skin. Do you not know that this is called the 48 Laws of Power discussion series? That's what the name of the show is. Discussion series. Bijou. Okay, I'm not going to yell at you, but I'm just saying that's the name of the show. It's the discussion series, my dear. Uh, the fact that the past is dead and buried gives you the freedom to reinterpret it. To support your cause, tinker with the facts. Oh, like the 1619 Project. The past is a text in which you can safely insert your own lines because it's dead and buried. A
Hmm.
simple gesture, like using an old title, like Darth, which is an honorary, it's a Sith insignia for not just a Sith Lord, but the supreme Sith Lord, the strongest among us. That's why there's only ever one Darth, and if someone else claims the mantle of Darth, you have to kill the current Darth. Or keeping the same number for a group will tie you to the past and support you with the authority of history. As Machiavelli himself observed, the Romans used this device when they transformed their monarchy into a republic. They may have installed two consuls in place of the king, but since the king had been served by 12 lictors, they remained the same number, or they retained the same number to serve under the consuls. The king had personally performed an annual sacrifice in a great spectacle that stirred the public. The Republic retained this practice, only transferring it to a special chief of the ceremony, whom they called the King of the Sacrifice. These and similar gestures satisfied the people and kept them from clamoring for the monarchy's return. Another strategy. Okay, so before we get into another strategy, like they literally changed the whole system by making all the ceremonial shit feel familiar.
Hmm.
Evening. Happy Monday, cool gamer. welcome, welcome to the discussion of. Anyway, yeah, and the people, because the new thing felt familiar enough like the old thing, the people did not rebel against the thing. The change was not. I mean, it was dramatic in its actual effect, but in its appearance and its feel, it was almost the exact same thing that they had before. They just changed a couple of names as far as the people knew. But to the average peasant, there was no great disruption to their daily life. And so they accepted the shit and they didn't revolt. Another strategy is to disguise change, is to make a loud and public display of support for the values of the past. This is the Ramaswamy approach.
Hmm.
Seem to be a zealot for tradition, and few will notice how unconventional you really are. Except we notice. I must be the few then, because I notice what you're doing out here. Renaissance Florence had a centuries old republic and was suspicious of anyone who flouted its traditions. Cosimo de' Medici made a show of enthusiastic support for the republic, while in reality he worked to bring the city under the control of his wealthy family. In form, the Medicis retained the appearance of a republic. In substance, they rendered it powerless. They quietly enacted a radical change while appearing to safeguard tradition, protect their democracy as it would be today. In case
You
anyone
know,
was wondering why my tone shifted so suddenly and why this sounds so eerily familiar to any of you, they were protecting their democracy. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yes, Mousen?
sorry, I hit the mute button.
Oh, I thought you said
That's all right.
something.
No. Mhm. It was yeah.
Huh.
Mhm.
This seems all vaguely familiar to something that happened here.
Yeah. Yeah. I told you it would. I told
Science
you it would.
claims a search for truth that would seem to protect it from conservatism and the irrationality of habit. It is a culture of innovation. Yet, when Charles Darwin published his ideas of evolution, he faced fiercer opposition from his fellow scientists than from religious authorities. Scientists are the original libertarians. And if you know anything about libertarians, you know who hates the libertarians the most? Other libertarians. The libertarians hate the libertarians way more than they hate the progressives or the conservatives. And they fight each other more than they fight anything else. Like, you wonder why your little group is never going to get anywhere because all of you are way too independent of thinkers to ever conform to a group. You stupid morons. Get your libertarianism out of here. You'll never be an effective party. I said it. I meant it. You scientists. His theories challenged too many fixed ideas. Jonas Salk ran into the same wall with his radical innovations in immunology. This guy is responsible for vaccines, y'all. As did Max Planck with his revolutionizing of physics. Planck later wrote of the scientific opposition he faced. A new scientific truth does not triumph by convincing its opponents and making them see the light, but rather because its opponents eventually die and a new generation grows up that is familiar with it. So that's what happens. Like, you don't change people's minds. You just indoctrinate the next generation, and then the old generation dies and your way becomes the new way. that's that's clever and convenient. Independence on the rise. Welcome to the party, Damien. That is a name I also don't recognize, so first timers welcome, like, greatly appreciated. Shout out to all the first timers over on the Rumble side of things. Our independence is on the rise as well. The answer to this innate conservatism is to play the courtier's game. Galileo did this at the beginning of his scientific career. He later became more confrontational and paid for it. So pay lip service to tradition. Identify the elements in your revolution that can be made to seem to build on the past. Say the right things. Make a show of conformity, and meanwhile, let your theories do their radical work. In other words, go ahead and not obfuscate, but co opt whatever you need from the past to sell whatever it is you're selling today. Like candidate Ramaswamy selling his entire platform as 1776 Part 2. The 1776 mindset. It's a radical traditionalism. I even heard this son of a bitch say that George Washington was the first America First conservative. I was like, you mean George Washington, the rebellion, treasonous traitor to the crown, was a conservative? No, because those were the loyalists, you idiot. Like he was a radical revolutionary who was pro America and not pro conservatism. But once they took power, like they went ahead and made sure that they enshrined their system that it would work for at least 80 years. An empire to last at least almost a century.
Yeah.
Oh, if only they knew. If only they knew that their clear language and their damn uh, constitution would be so open to rampant, dishonest interpretation. Ah. Play with appearances and respect past protocol. This is true in every arena, science being no exception. Finally, powerful people pay attention to the zeitgeist. If their reform is too far ahead of its time, few will understand it, and it will stir up anxiety and be hopelessly misinterpreted. The changes you must the changes you make must seem less innovative than they are. England did eventually become a Protestant nation, as Cromwell wished, but it took over a century of gradual evolution. Just like we are becoming a communism as the communist Soviets wished. It just took, I mean, almost a century. Watch the zeitgeist. If you work in a tumultuous time, there is power to be gained by preaching a return to the past, to comfort, tradition, and ritual. It's that first part, that comfort part, that's the most appealing bit. During a period of stagnation, on the other hand, play the card of reform and revolution. But beware of what you stir up. Those who finish a revolution are rarely those who start it. You will not succeed at this dangerous game unless you are willing to forestall the inevitable reaction against it by playing with appearances and building on the past. This is why I don't see too much of a revolution against the inevitable collapse coming, because
Hmm.
it's a dangerous game. And when you do revolution, your odds of getting the dead go up very dramatically because the powers that be love to be everything but challenged. Authority. He who desires or attempts to reform the government of a state and wishes to have it accepted must at least retain the semblance of the old forms, so that it may seem to the people that there has been no change in the institutions, even though in fact they are entirely different from the old ones. For the great majority of mankind are satisfied with appearances as though they were realities. Machiavelli. And if you look at when the Roman Empire folded into the Roman Republic and the way they swapped the king for the two consuls, they kept the 12 lictors and they made like the master of the king of the sacrifice. Like they kept with the old forms and the old traditions, but in reality it was very different, but the appearances for the vast majority of people were the same. So it didn't stir up any sort of discontent. Image. The cat. Creature of habit, it loves the warmth of the familiar. Upset its routines, disrupt its space, and it will grow unmanageable and psychotic. It's a cat. It's already
Take
unmanageable
away,
and psychotic.
yeah, but you take away my warm blankie and I get psychotic too.
Well, you're a mouse. It's the same thing.
True.
A mouse and a cat are fundamentally the exact same thing, except for mice don't usually eat cats as often as cats eat mice.
Very true.
Placate it by supporting its rituals. If change is necessary, deceive the cat by keeping the smell of the past alive. Place objects familiar to it in strategic locations. I'm not even going to lie to you. I know somebody who took an object familiar to a cat once and placed it in a strategic location for a long time until that cat learned how to use the toilet. Because
I can believe that.
they kept putting the cat's litter box on top of the toilet in the bathroom that nobody ever used. And then they eventually took it away like a couple of days a week, and the cat used the litter box without the litter box. And then the litter box was just gone one day. And I seen that cat using the bathroom, and I was like, "Wow, that's
Impressive.
that's a cool trick, yo." Can you teach it to flush? No, but it's easier than cleaning out the litter box.
Very true.
Fair enough. I thought cats had like a fundamental need to bury their droppings. Nope, that's not really a thing. They're not going to bury it in the water. It's already in the water. Anywho, we have made it to the reversal, and despite all the people pushing us, I mean, this was a much shorter law than the last one we did, but there was a lot more of a discussion going on, so
We had a lot to discuss.
yep. Let's get into the reversal then. The past is a corpse to be used as you see fit. So is Joe Biden. If what happened in the recent past was painful and harsh, It is self destructive to associate yourself with it. When Napoleon came to power, the French Revolution was fresh in everyone's minds. If the how did I know this shit was going to come up?
Because
I
he
just
loves Napoleon.
he does love Napoleon and Mao, and you look at this specific chapter. Like I said that before we even started, Napoleon and Mao, both in this chapter. I knew this shit was coming. Oh,
Louis even makes an
yeah,
appearance. Yeah.
yeah. If the court he established had borne any resemblance to the lavish court of Louis the 16th and Marie Antoinette, his courtiers would have spent all their time worrying about their own necks. Instead, Napoleon established a court remarkable for its sobriety and lack of ostentation. It was the court of a man who valued work and military virtues, which is good because he was a general and very competent military commander. This new form seemed appropriate and reassuring. That's what I just fucking said. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Greene. You were explaining. In other words, pay attention to the times, but understand if you make a bold change from the past, you must avoid at all costs the appearance of a void or vacuum, or you will create terror. Smooth transitions only, people. Make sure
Yeah.
you have a plan for what comes next and make sure you have a path to implementing it as you're tearing down the old thing, be working it in so that as the old thing is on its way out, this new thing is something you're conditioning people to, like, say, I don't know, spring a fake pandemic on them to get them all used to, like, uh covering their faces, not talking to each other, and looking like at anyone who doesn't comply like they're the fucking enemy. That's an interesting little nugget of information. Greene said in an interview how much he loves Napoleon, might be his hero, so to speak. Yeah, I've noticed like things that are very reoccurring in this book specifically. Napoleon, Mao, the quotes of Machiavelli, and the quotes of Gracienne. Like, very, very common.
And they all did similar things.
I mean, we had a couple of thinkers and then a couple of amazing, great leaders in that mix. And I mean, Machiavelli
Mhm.
actually qualifies as both. I don't know actually like the history of Gracian outside of his work in philosophy, but he's got a lot of great takes on just the human animal specifically.
Mhm.
Even an ugly recent history will seem preferable to an empty space. Fill that space immediately with new rituals and forms. Soothing and growing familiar, these will secure your position among the masses. Finally, the arts, fashion, and technology would seem to be areas in which power would come from creating a radical rupture with the past and appearing cutting edge. Indeed, such a strategy can bring great power, but it has many dangers. It is inevitable that your innovations will be outdone by someone else. You have little control. Someone younger and fresher moves in a sudden new direction, making your bold innovation of yesterday seem tiresome and tame today. I tell y'all, by the
Mhm.
time they actually perfect the brain chips, y'all are going to be so bored of your cell phone that you're going to be itching for the next big thing and they're going to find a way to sell it maybe not to any of the people listening to this particular live stream right now, but they're going to sell it to the masses in mass. You know they are, right? People are so quick to jump into the fucking matrix. It's sickening. Like the same people that they sold the 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 coof panic of 2020 are gonna be the same people that buy up like the fucking Neuralink brain chip in mass when they find the right marketing campaign to make it widely accepted.
Mhm.
You are forever playing catch up. Your power is tenuous and short lived. You want a power built on something more solid. Using the past, tinkering with tradition, playing with convention to subvert it will give your creation something more than a momentary appeal. Periods of dizzying change disguise the fact that a yearning for the past will inevitably creep back in. In the end, using the past for your own purposes will bring you more power than trying to cut it out completely, a futile and self destructive endeavor. Mike Gohagan just summed up the whole chapter in 3 fucking words. Sheep gon' sheep. That is the entire Law 45. Sheep
Pretty
gon'
much.
people love what they're used to. And you can't just take it away from them all at once. They
Yep.
will go insane. Okay, class, that was the 45th Law. It was pretty straightforward. It was pretty self-explanatory. If I didn't have Mousy to talk to with so many of these examples, this would have been a 1.5 hour to 2 hour show maximum, probably 1.5. Thank you
Maybe.
for joining me. I'm glad you decided to want just throw a full claim and radically change like because having divinity back like that was how the show started in the first place. But you were like, I'm radically going to switch it up. I'm going to be the first person to outright demand a spot on the show. And I was like, really? You were like, yeah, I called it. I'm like, and that means well, we're doing Law 45 together. Are you sure? You, you have radically disrupted my entire tradition.
Exactly. That was the purpose.
It it worked. It worked really well. I hope everybody else enjoyed it. I had a great time, and your disruption of the tradition actually was what led me to be like, okay, well, Mouse has aggressively claimed 45. Cat Ninja was poking around at me about getting in the mix too. And I looked at the remaining laws. I had already promised to end this show the way I began it. So next week, Monday, Divinity returns to seal this thing up once and for all with Law 48. But Wednesday, the law never appear too perfect. The guest, my ever super not so imperfect, ultra supportive, bestest buddy Cat Ninja.
Cat Ninja.
And on Friday, the Outsiders round out the week. I will be having on Bijou for the 47th Law, which do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop. And if there's anyone that I know who's actually been able to get me to stop, Bijou. She knows
That's
like BJ's got so at noon on Friday that will actually be the the fun guest. Isn't that right for you? Yeah, that's why I'm glad this worked out the way it did. It's a perfect one. I'm not gonna even get into the fact that it's just a clone of Law 29, which is planned all the way to the end. Because it might not be. It might be something different. I can't really remember. It's been a long time since I read this book the first time, and I didn't understand most of what I was reading. Does anybody want to hear my crazy fucking idea that I had? Because I did mention that I had a crazy ass idea.
Ooh, it's a
I
crazy ass idea.
kind of want to get chat involved. I don't know to what extent I want to involve chat. But remember how I said that there isn't going to be a test on the 48 laws of power?
Oh,
I
there
have a
should totally be a test.
I have a challenge. And it is a challenge specifically for me, but it's also a challenge for chat. And that is to come up with our own law of power. I don't know if I want to do this as a collective group or have everyone come up with each their own laws of power. Yes, this is my crazy idea. But if everyone could like write a law of power, give a couple of observances, give a couple of well, maybe a couple of observances or transgressions, just uh, you guys know how the format of the laws work. Like he does transgressions, observances. For the big laws, he's got the like different hierarchies of like the different effects, like the mirror effect and shit. Come up with our own law, and if you submit one, then Darth Hideous can read it on stream. And we can add
Ooh,
our own. I mean, I think this too, Bijou, but on the other hand, like I know what it would take to get this group to agree on the logistics of like settling where we all work on one topic that we like. That's why I think doing each our own, because then we can which realm of power, which approach, because what gives me power is not going to be what gives you power. So I'm going to understand my power and the laws that are appropriate and valid to me in a manner that's going to be different than yours. Oh,
I have no idea.
I was going to say you have a microphone too.
Well, I wasn't going to interrupt you just yet, but I
Go ahead.
didn't want to forget my idea.
What's your idea?
We should have AI make a law of power.
Oh, I mean, we can have AI do that too. I've been playing around with a new AI. But I like the idea of everybody like yeah, it's not
We
mandatory
we
by any
should.
means, but if anyone wanted to write a law of power, I would be honored to read them on stream. That's what I was getting at. I think I'm gonna try to write one. I'm not entirely sure what focus I'm going to take yet, but to have AI do one, um,
Do a human versus AI. Like have
oh well, AI
people
can't beat
submit
a
one.
human. AI can't beat humans. I mean, I'm down for this challenge. Like, I just got to figure out a way to like format a law that. I mean, you see how many of these laws overlap with each other, so it's not like
Oh yeah.
that. There's like 48 different points of where power comes from. It's really not that complicated. There's about 7 or 8 true approaches to power, and the rest of it's like managing power. And Heidi should be here. I bet she would have a
Yeah.
law.
Oh yeah. Heidi would be real good at that.
Okay, I know Heidi will be in my replay gang section at some point. Miss Heidi, at whatever length you would like to, when you hit the comment section on this stream, just let me know if you do or do not want to see the class do their own interpretation and write their own, like, just one law. You don't have to write 48 of them, but something that applies to you and some references. Hopefully, they'll be like historically verifiable references. But at this point, I would even accept like anecdotal. This worked for me in real life. If you have a story, a fun story to go with it. I mean, I'm down to put together Darth Hidious's laws of power, or the hideous community's laws of power, anyway. So if you guys are into that idea, hit me up in the comments section below. Uh, find me on the Zitter sphere at Darth the Hideous. There's a the in the middle. And final roll call of the night. We still got 8 on YouTube. We still got 1 on the X Zitter Twitter sphere. And we've got a 11, 12. Okay, cool. 12 kicking it over on Rumble still. Shout out to the Rumble gang. You know I love y'all. Don't tell anybody you're my favorite. I mean, Rumble's my favorite platform. Honestly, the people are great everywhere. I just like Rumble better than I like YouTube because screw you, YouTube. Piss off. But anyway, guys, I will see you back here on Wednesday. I will be with Cat Ninja, and we will be doing Never Appear Too Perfect, Law 46. And I mean, if there's anyone who's really good at not appearing too perfect, I should be a natural for this one. So hopefully, with Cat Ninja around, I will look even more imperfect. But yeah, shout out to everybody. Leave a like if you enjoyed the stream. Subscribe or follow if you haven't, because I'm getting close to announcing what book we're going to do next, but I want to wait until this one is in, like, firmly tucked into bed before I tell y'all what we're going to do, what I want to do next. So, see you Wednesday. And what is my new? Oh, yeah, seatbelts and sidearms, y'all. Seriously, I'm not kidding. It is getting crazier and crazier every day. So, the new safety briefing is stay strapped or get clapped. Until Wednesday, y'all, I will catch you amongst the wastelands. Darth Hideous and Smol
Mousy.
Mousen out.
Bye.